Hi, everyone. So we promised we would talk to you all about professionalism and relationship building since we did not get to that at our orientation training. So here we are. This is really important topic because some of you may this might be your first job. This might be your first professional position. Also, we just have very specific constituents that we work with in this program. So we like to talk about how to work with each of those individuals and groups and give you some tips on relationship building and really making that not only first impression strong, but continuing building those relationships as you go along in this journey. So we will start first with your relationship with you and your professor. So this is really important. You may have already met your professor. Hopefully you have, or at least reached out to them and made contact through a professional email. But now it's time to start building that relationship. This one is key because it will also matter to your relationship with your students. Your students are going to consistently see you and your professor working together, whether it's in the classroom, outside of the classroom, before or after class, those sorts of things. So it's really important that you have a positive working relationship. Definitely introducing yourself prior to the first day of classes, if at all possible. Again, you may have already done that. And then also setting up a meeting with them. So you're going to set up a meeting with them to talk about expectations for the semester. Your professor has received a homework and D2L policy form that they are going to fill out, and they can also discuss that with you, in which you'll receive a copy of after that meeting. That will talk about the parameters around what they expect for you to do in the classroom, how often you can make announcements, how often you will be meeting with them. When you meet with them, it's really, really important to help each other gauge how the students are doing in the course because you both have different perspectives. So you're working from the peer level and they're working from the professional level and the expert level with those students. So they're going to see their class grades, which you will not see. They're going to see how they're performing and make those judgments also on how they're interacting in the class. But when you're working with them, you can not only encourage them to interact more in the classroom and ask questions, but you'll also be able to gauge in session what they're struggling with, perhaps what they're doing really well in, and then report those general things to the professor. Of course, we're keeping students' participation and their names confidential. This is anonymous as far as attendance and SI sessions. If you have any questions about that, or if your professor is trying to offer any extra credit, we can work with you individually. But all that being said, in class with the professor, be friendly, of course, be helpful when possible. So if they ask you to hand out papers during class, or they ask you to jump in when they're doing small group work in the classroom, that's a really good chance for you to build relationships with the students and just be that helpful person for your professor and the students in class. It's also important to always treat them as your ally so that students see that they're not some scary, overarching person who is going to be difficult to come to when they have any questions. We want to encourage them to sit down with their professor in office hour. So them seeing you do that as a peer is really important to help them feel more confident in doing the same. As I already mentioned, meeting with them, we would prefer regularly. So oftentimes that looks like once a week for the first few weeks. Some faculty and facilitators meet every other week or once a month. So that's something that you all need to decide, and that might change. Especially around test time, you might meet with them a little bit more regularly to get some ideas on content that is most relevant for test review sessions. So again, this is a partnership between the two of you, and you will decide together. As I mentioned, here are some other ideas on what to talk about when you're meeting with them, so you can look over that. Some of our don'ts. These are really important to maintaining that positive relationship. Don't hesitate to refer the professor to me. if they have any requests. So the director needs to kind of filter faculty requests. That's very, very important, especially if you're uncertain or if you're uncomfortable with a request that's being made. For example, if a faculty member asked, hey, can I come in and sit in on one of your sessions? You can respectfully say, well, SI is actually anonymous, so that we can have that peer-to-peer interaction. And so if you have a desire to sit in a session, you can work with my SI director on other sessions to attend, that sort of thing, and then give them my contact info, which they already have, by the way. But that's just a really good approach to take. Also, don't answer questions in class if the professor is asking the class to respond to something. So it's really important that those students who are currently in the course, taking it for the first time, are the ones interacting with question and responses. And also, you know, if the professor's asking them to come work on the board, of course, you already know how to do these things. Most likely you've been through this course. So, you know, remaining helpful throughout class and not necessarily silent. If you're called upon, of course, that is the perfect opportunity to speak up, but only if you're called upon by the professor. So make sure those students are the ones interacting with the course material in class. Also, it's a big don't to do not grade papers or test. You don't need to be involved in anything involving grading, scores, not knowing their grades in general. None of our SI leaders are trained on how to keep that information confidential. It would require additional training. And plus, we don't want you to have any biases, because we all have biases that we oftentimes are unaware of, but we don't want you to have an impression of how well a student is doing in that class, because we're working with students on all levels, all skill levels. So you're bringing the same material to every student no matter what. And that is your focus as the SI leader. Also, make sure not to set yourself up as that expert or that teacher. As you've been trained on, you are not the expert. You're just there to facilitate the learning and not evaluate the students. And that includes many techniques that we have taught you on how to run your sessions, including not kind of hovering over students in session, but sitting down with them, getting on their level, making sure they're interacting with each other, and you're just there to help guide that process. Also, it's very important that if students ever do speak negatively about their faculty member in the SI course that you're paired with, that you do not engage in that. This does happen. Students will express their frustrations at various times, whether it's in a group chat or in a session, wherever it might be. You want to try to cut that off and remind them that we're here for the learning. We've got so much time to be together. Let's bring our concerns to the professor directly if we can, or you can also kind of navigate that in different ways, which we can give you ideas on. But it's very important that you do not engage in that, because you are there to be that professional role. You are also that peer, so it's a very healthy balance, but we don't want any negative talk. We want to bring the students back to what they can control. And part of that is if they have an issue, bringing it up directly to professor so they can get that resolved for themselves. All right, and then also, I missed one. Don't engage in negative talk with your professor about any issue that you might have with your role in the SI program or the SI program in general. If you have any issues at all, we ask that you bring those things directly to us. They are not your supervisor. They are a partner in this program. We are serving them as well as their students. So it's very important that you come to your supervisor, which is either myself or Sarah Dean, the assistant director, and that you bring any issues up to us and we can help you resolve those things.
Alrighty, so the next relationship that we wanted to dive into was the relationship between you and your students. So when working with your students, we like to always say just say yes to students' requests whenever it's reasonably possible to do so. And there, I feel like there's a big emphasis on the reasonably possible to do so. Um, we'll talk in just a little bit about kind of like setting those healthy boundaries and all that. But I think a big thing with this point is if you do need to say no for whatever reason, being able to explain why that is in like that honest and truthful way. So also with your students, you want to recognize the limits of your job description and training. Um, you all have gone through hours and hours of training. You are ready to go and do this position and be an incredible SI facilitator. And so you know what you're doing. And so like Emily was just saying, like y'all are not expected to be the experts. We do not expect you to be the expert. You are trained to do a very specific thing. Um, and so sometimes students might try and push you into like a different role, like they might try and get you to go into more of a tutoring role. But remember your job description and the limits of what you can do as that facilitator. And so, like I was just saying, like if you do have to say no, always provide straightforward and truthful responses to your students. Even if it's a saying yes, just being upfront with students really helps build that relationship and build that trust between you. Sarah recently, I feel like the past couple semesters have been saying like nothing is like below ground. Like nothing is a secret in SI. Like we can explain why we're doing certain things. We can explain why we're going to use the three elements and how that's going to help the students in the long run. So just being truthful with your students and upfront about things like that will really help that relationship between you two. Or yeah, two, however many students you got, but that one-on-one is just going to be two. So then next up, we want you to remember that the goal of SI is more than simply just helping students score well on exams. Kind of like the sub bullet point says, students can do well or not so well on exams for many different reasons. Our goal is to help them be successful in the course, and what successful for you might look very different than what successful for one of your students might look like. So that's one of the great things we get to do in SI is work with our students and learn like what it means for them to be successful in this course. Um, and so sometimes they may share their exam scores with you. Obviously, it's not required. You shouldn't ask for those, but sometimes you'll see that your students will just offer those up to you. Um, but a lot of times we've found that facilitators might kind of take that personally if their students didn't do well on an exam. But that, like I said, there's many factors that go into how a student does on exams. So try not to take it personally. One of the best things that we get to do is also kind of give our students those study skills that we are providing them and those techniques that we're doing in sessions and bonus hours that they'll be able to take beyond just this class that they're in that you're sitting in with them. And so then last up on our do attempt to treat all your students like you would treat a friend. You are their peer. Like, this is, you are kind of in that leadership role. You are like this professional. This is a job for you. But ultimately, like, you're gonna get the most out of sessions if you're treating your students like you would treat a friend. Like, don't have like this hierarchical, like putting yourself like on this pedestal. You're all on the same level. You were just sitting in the class not that long ago. Um, and so really just kind of building that camaraderie and community within session by treating your students like you would treat a friend, talking with them like you would talk with your friends. Like just because, like I said, this is a job, you don't have to come in and use like the formal language of everything. Speak to your students how you would talk with your friends. Use that lingo, use that language that is popular right now. And yeah, really just kind of build that community. And so moving into the don'ts, don't refer to your students as kids. I always say kids are baby goats and we are working with adult humans. So we are not working with kids, we're working with our students. And so just like I was just saying, like treat them like your friend, like they're probably going to be maybe close to a similar age as you, but even if not, like they are enrolled in a college level course. Even if they are dual enrolled in the course, they're enrolled in a college level course. Like we're working with essentially adults here. So we aren't working with kids, we aren't working with children, we're working with our students. And so we got to have that respect for them and not just referring to them as kids can almost be seen as like belittling or like demeaning. And like I said earlier, like putting yourself like up on that like higher pedestal when we're trying to get it on that like that peer-to-peer interaction. Um, the next don't is don't hope for no attendance. This sounds kind of like, yeah, duh, but we tend to see it happen, especially when it starts to get into some really busy points in the semester. But by hoping for no attendance, like you may think you aren't like presenting that, but like there's that energy, there's that vibe going out. Like there's a big difference. Like we can tell if you're making an announcement and you're like really hoping for no like you're hoping for no attendance, like students are going to pick up on that. And it's like, from the student perspective, it's like, if they don't want me to come this time, like, why would I come at all? Like in the future, like it just creates this like, if you don't want me there, like why would I even go? So definitely don't be hoping for no attendance. Keep the hope up for attendance, and even if you are struggling with attendance, don't try not to let that get you down. Like, still keep going as the semester goes on with that hope that you're going to have attendance and it's going to be a great session with whoever shows up. So then don't feel obligated to fix problems that student create and can solve for themselves. So you'll see that no matter what we do in session and remind them, like we have our like 48 hours before a test, like no sessions, like that kind of deal. But you'll see and learn that a lot of students may not subscribe to that ideology, not yet, at least, maybe, especially that first test. And I know in the past I've had students like trying to cram and like messaging me, like freaking out, but that is a problem that they have created for themselves. And so that is not your responsibility to fix. So this is kind of when it gets into, I'll jump down a few lines, like don't be afraid to set those healthy boundaries and say no to student requests for help outside of SI hours. So like I was saying, you have a lot of training in under your belt. You know what you're doing, you know what your role, your responsibilities are as a facilitator. And so you know what you're doing. We have those 8 to 12 hours a week. If you're constantly, like, it is not reasonably possible to meet with students individually, like meet with 5 students individually every week just because they have a problem. If you try and do that, you are going to be stressed out. You aren't going to be able to get your own schoolwork done. Um, so start off from the beginning, set those healthy boundaries and show them like, I'm here to help you in my allotted time and when I can, but I'm also going to model that healthy behavior that hopefully you will pick up on. And in the future, when maybe their friends start asking them for help at 3 in the morning, they'll learn how to say no as well and model those healthy boundaries from you modeling it for them. Um, and so kind of with that, don't give out your personal information. We found that if you give out your phone number or if you were to give out your address, like students' understanding of boundaries and limits, not always the best. So you might be getting texts, phone calls, and knock on your door, like whatever it may be. If you're giving out personal information, like students are going to use that. And so just set yourself up for success. Don't give it out. This next bullet point, don't demand that students defend themselves to you. A lot of times we see this happen in like the most like nice and sincere way of like, one of your regulars maybe didn't show up to session. And so we've seen facilitators in the past be like, hey, why weren't you in session? Kind of like that idea of like, you maybe are wanting to check in with them, make sure they're okay. But by asking it in that way, you're putting them on the spot to really like defend themselves as to why they didn't come to session. Like they aren't 100% required to go to sessions. Sessions are voluntary, free, all that great stuff. So they don't have to defend themselves to you. So always be thinking about your language and how you're asking certain things and not making them defend themselves to you. So it might sound something like, hey, missed you in session yesterday, like hope everything's going okay. That kind of thing is not putting them on the spot to like defend themselves to you. So then like Emily was just kind of talking about in this last slide, like definitely you have that authority to step up in session. You are in charge of session. You're in charge of making sure we're staying on track and all of that. But like you don't need to be in that authority role all the time. Like step up in that authority if your students start talking about their favorite TV show. Like, hey guys, let's get back on focus. Let's get back talking about insert course content here. But other than that, like I said, be treating your students like you would a friend. Don't set yourself up as like the expert, this like hierarchical, you aren't the professor. You're just there to help people study and get through the class successfully. And then lastly, don't allow yourself to be drawn into an argument with students. This can really create a rift between like you and your students, even if you are like getting drawn into an argument with one student, other students might be there to witness that argument and they'll see that and it can just leave a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to SI. Um, so if you are having a particular, like I said, maybe step up in that authority, like move the session along. But if you are having like a particular issue with like one student or like a group of students, you aren't sure how to deal with them, reach out to your mentor or your leadership team, admin team, and we would love to help you kind of figure out how to navigate those situations so that you aren't getting put into those kinds of situations. And that is you and your students.
All right, so you and your supervisor, and then this also includes other professional staff, like your other lead team staff, other staff, just regardless. Big one, do respond to any communication within 48 hours. That is professionalism. We expect that any communication is responded to within 48 hours. We will also uphold that standard as well. But we also say, please act in grace if you have not received a response in 48 hours. Please do follow up. That is a professional courtesy. And again, we will do the same with you. If we don't receive a response within 48 hours, we will follow up. However, if it becomes a regular thing, that's when it really becomes a problem. So please do, as an employee of this university, and just as a good student, you should really be checking your emails every single day, at least once a day, just to make sure that nothing important is coming through, that you're not missing anything. And so please do have intentional time where you can sit down and kind of check your email and be able to respond to anything that requires a response. And again, please do follow up if that's necessary. Don't follow up immediately if you don't hear back like within an hour, a very short time. Give people time, but if it's outside of that 48 hours, please do follow up. Definitely turn to the administrative staff for assistance on anything related to SI. We are here to help you with your role. We've all been doing this for many years now, and we've seen a lot, and we've worked through a lot with past students. And so we have that knowledge and experience to be able to help you through whatever is happening in your role. Definitely utilize proper communication etiquette. Please recognize which communication you're using. If you're using an email, make that email as professional as possible with a good subject line that actually says like what you're covering in the email, with like proper addressing the person properly, whether that be like with a first name, or if you're talking to your professor with a doctor, professor, however you would address that individual, but make sure you do address them in the email. Make sure to sign your name so that we know who the email is coming from. All of those things. If you're sending a Teams message, those can be obviously more informal, but there's also some boundaries, like, there's some etiquette that goes into that too. So yeah, just remember that like you're working with professionals. Don't send things like you would as a text, anything like that, like just and try to be as complete and cohesive with the communication as possible. Provide the details that are necessary in that first email so that we're not having to go back and forth trying to decipher what you're meaning. So providing as much detail as possible, things like that. Definitely use us as professional mentors and advisors. We want to get to know you. We want to learn about what your interests are and what your goals are and what your future career path is, all of those things. While, you know, the lead team may not span like every single major and things like that. We have a whole network of past SIs that and that we can possibly get you in touch with, and we would just love to be able to help you along in those journeys. And so, yeah, definitely use us. Please report any issues to your direct supervisor. For new people, that's me, and new people are the ones primarily watching this. Request assistance handling these problems. So don't try to fix something on your own. Reach out to me. Let me kind of help and guide you through any of those issues. That's, again, we've seen a lot. And we have a lot of valuable experience that we can help with when solving issues. Definitely communicate with your direct supervisor on a regular basis. That is kind of, I would say that's your responsibility to make sure in a lot of ways, like that you are communicating with me, that you're reaching out when something is coming up, when you have questions, things like that. Please make sure that you are communicating. And then definitely respect all of the administrative staff, all of the lead team, your supervisors, your mentors. That's they're in these positions for a reason. And again, they have a lot of valuable experience and expertise and that they want to share with you. And so please do respect them and that experience at all times. So some don'ts: do not ignore communication attempts from SI staff. Just don't do it. If you see an email from us, please do open it. Please read it. Please read it thoroughly. There's a lot. We try not to send like random superfluous emails. So, or communications like in the group me and teams and things like that. Like we try not to send just random things. If we're sending something out to the team as a whole, it's because we want the team as a whole there's either an action step or there's something that is important for us to know. So please don't ignore those. Do not report any issues with SI sessions to your faculty member. Again, your faculty member is not your supervisor. They are not your supervisor. They don't need to know about things going on in session. They don't need to know about issues popping up or anything like that. So if you do have issues, report those to your supervisor. We will tell you whether or not you need to go to your faculty. The first contact is a supervisor or another member of the professional lead team staff. Do not disrespect or criticize the SI program or administrative staff to students, staff, or faculty. Don't go around talking poorly about the SI program with these other constituents. That is not saying, like, that is not meant to say, like, you can't say anything negative about the SI program, but we need those, we need that feedback, and we need to be able to resolve that feedback with you privately. That's professionalism in a nutshell. So instead of, if you have some issue with your role as an SI leader, with the program in general, please bring that to us so that we can resolve it, and so that we can understand what's going on. Yeah. Do not no-show to a prearranged meeting with your direct supervisor or mentor. That is a no-call, no-show. Do not do that. If you have set a meeting with the professional staff or with your mentor, it is your responsibility to keep up with that meeting and to put that meeting in your personal calendar. Make sure that you are where you are supposed to be, when you are supposed to be there. Communicate beforehand if you are not able to make that meeting, if an emergency comes up. But be at the meetings. We have, this is a very large team, and we have a lot of meetings. A lot of the time, our time is very valuable, just like your time is very, very valuable, and we will show that same courtesy to you as well. All right.
Alrighty, so next up is you and your leadership team. So your leadership team includes all of the admin team, your mentors, and senior leaders. That is what we talk about when we're talking about the lead team or leadership team. So when thinking about those relationships, you'll be getting a lot of feedback from everybody on the lead team. So when getting that feedback, use that feedback as a tool to help you grow and develop as a facilitator. It is not coming from perfect people. None of us are perfect or have the SI model 100% down, gets it right 100% of the time. We just have a little bit of experience under our belts, and we've trained the mentors, senior leaders to kind of give that feedback in a way that is going to hopefully be taken well and help you grow and develop not only as an SI leader and facilitator, but just as a leader in general and as a person. So don't be afraid to reach out to us with any questions or concerns regarding SI. Mentors, senior leaders are a great kind of first point of contact. I know a lot of you are already like in your group me's, so like that's great. Reach out to each other as well. And that's also going to help build those long-lasting friendships. We like to say, you know, we're a little family here in SI. We have lots of fun events that we do outside of just our required like trainings and meetings. We do fun things, and some really great relationships and friendships can really be formed, and we've seen them be formed over the years. So don't be afraid to use all of us. We are spread out among all the different campuses, but just because you're on Dahlonega doesn't mean you can't reach out to someone who's on Oconee. Please, like Sarah was saying on our last slide, we all have some different expertise or like areas where we've had a lot of experience. So we might even refer you to someone on a different campus, but we don't silo by campus. We are one big team. And then in those feedback, like I said, you'll be getting a lot of feedback from us, but in those feedback kind of meetings and debriefs, we'll also be setting SI personal, academic, and career goals. And so we are a great way to kind of keep you on track and help hold you accountable and check in, just see where you're at on working towards those goals. Like I was saying, we want to see you grow and develop. And so we're here to do that and help you reach the goals that you want to reach. And so with that, come prepared with any questions, and please, 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 please take notes whenever you have a meeting or in any meetings or debrief with your lead team. Like taking notes is like one of the best ways that you will remember what is talked about and help you actually implement the feedback that you're given and help you actually reach those goals that you do want to set. So when it comes to the don't, like Sarah was saying with the 48-hour rule, don't get frustrated when we can't respond right away. A lot of your mentors and senior leaders are also students and oftentimes also facilitating as well, just like you. So they're going to try their best to respond to you as soon as they can, but it might not be instantly like we might like it to be. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable when getting feedback and setting some goals. That can be in a kind of vulnerable place for a lot of people, but we are here to help you grow and, like I said, reach those goals. And the best way we're going to be able to do that is with you being authentic. So we are here to help you and support you in whatever ways that you need. So please just don't be afraid to be vulnerable and open up with us. Don't only utilize us because you have to. for example, like only talking to us for observations and debriefs. Like I said, I think everybody on the lead team is a fun crowd. I think we do a lot of fun things. So we're great people. Get to know us. We want to get to know you as well, not just as like a colleague. We want to get to know you as a person as well. So please don't only utilize us because you have to. And then also, don't shut down or take constructive feedback personally. Everybody is getting feedback in this organization. We try and do it like we don't give feedback from a place of like you're trash at your job. We give feedback from a place of we want to see you grow and develop and continue to kind of set that bar higher and achieve those goals that you set for yourself. That being said, if you are ever given some feedback that you felt like wasn't delivered in the best way for you, I would recommend that you talk with the person who gave you that feedback just so you can kind of help set that expectation of like, hey, that might work for other people, but for me, like the way you gave that feedback, it really hurt me, whatever that looks like. But if you aren't comfortable doing that with the person who gave you that feedback directly, contact a member of the admin team and we can kind of have a discussion around that.
Sorry. All right. So the big thing with you and your colleagues, these are other members of the SI, other SI facilitators. The overarching theme here is just support each other. We are community. That's what we want. We do life together. We do this crazy SI thing together. And so support each other. If you have, the big one here is if you have a facilitator in one of your academic classes, go to their sessions. Go try and go to sessions as much as possible. You're an SI. You're an SI facilitator. You know what that's like. And if you can support your colleagues directly while also studying for your own classes, that is an excellent opportunity. And so please do that. We try to make it as easy as possible for you to attend sessions for classes that you are currently enrolled in. So please do. Definitely utilize your mentor groups, your small groups as a support system. They're really great. Collaborate with other facilitators that are paired with your same instructor or even just in the same discipline. We've seen a lot of really cool things come out of facilitators kind of partnering with each other to support their students as a whole. And so we would love to see that happen with this team. And just ask us, because you never know what we can do to support those creative endeavors. We'd love to see it. So definitely schedule meetings with facilitators in your discipline to develop new activities. Use those planning meetings to brainstorm different activities that you can use, that you can bring to session, that you guys can all use and bring to session. Write those down and share them with us so that we can share them with the team as a whole and with facilitators in the future. We love different ideas, and y'all are the best ones at coming up with them. Come to fun activities outside of normal working hours. We consistently, every single month, have multiple opportunities for us to get together as a community to kind of just do fun things, not necessarily always talk about SI, but just do life together. That's what's just so special about this team as a whole. And so we do encourage you, come to those events, even if you don't necessarily know anybody and it might be stepping out of your comfort zone, step out of your comfort zone. The best way to get to know people are through events like this. So I would encourage every single one of you to make a goal this semester of attending an outside team meal or anything, whatever that looks like. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but please definitely do that. That leads to the next point. Encourage each other to step out of comfort zones. try that new thing, and then encourage the person at biweekly sitting next to you to try the new thing that they maybe are hesitant to do. Let's step out of comfort zones together. Definitely heap praise on each other when you see a job well done. If you heard that Bob had a really great session, let them know that. Let them know that you heard about that and give them a high five. If Kayla did a really great did really great on her genetics test, give her a high five in the hall. You know, make sure that we're building each other up. And then learn from each other's strengths. We all have different strengths, and we can all benefit from using each other's strengths and using each other's perspective. And we really do better when we work together. So definitely do that. But overall, just find little ways to support your teammates for sure.
All right, and this is last but certainly not least, we have leadership in action. We kind of set you all up as leaders by giving you this position. So positional leadership is step one, but then we say, now go and do the thing that is leadership, practice it. So we want to make sure that you're doing that all the time, because you are in this position and seen as a trustful member of this team. We ask that you kind of set yourself up to be that good example all the time. I always say there's someone always watching. So, you know, you are out in the UNG community just by being in your local community, even when you're not on campus. So, you know, being that role model is really, really important, so that it reflects on positively on you, the organization, the university, all of those things. So being that model student in class is really important, because you want to show the students how to be successful in that class. And so you might already have notes, really good notes from when you took it the first time. But sitting there and taking notes, because you will always catch new things the second time around, add to your notes as you sit in class this semester. You know, jot down ideas as they come to you. Don't sit there and plan for your session in class. That is not acceptable. You get paid for those things separately, and you need to be paying attention, because you will miss something that's really important that professor says in class that you need to bring into session. So make sure you are focusing, being that good student, not having technology out and texting during class. Again, being respectful. And that is respect for your professor and your students. So setting yourself up as that good role model, making sure to be on time. As Oscar says, early is on time and on time is late. So if you can get to your SI class early, 10 minutes is, I think, a good rule. You know, students will start to come in at that time, and you can also build relationships with them before class. I've seen more relationships and more students drawn into session just by simply the facilitator being able to hang out and like chit chat with them before class. So very, very important. And then do not, as we already said, interact during lecture time unless you're invited to do so. A key element also by being a model student is you always knowing what's going on in that class. So again, I can't tell you how often when I was teaching classes, I heard students asking each other questions like, so when's our next exam? Or when is this or this or this? And I'm like, your syllabus. So use that redirection skill that you have learned, redirect them. But it's also really important that you know the answer to that, those questions, that you're very familiar with the syllabus. You're talking to the professor enough to know when there's updates to when the next test is going to be, what assignments are due, and that will also help you plan for your sessions better. So be on top of those things. That really, really requires you to be organized too. This is key, and we understand this is difficult for many of us. If you haven't already figured out an organization system that works well for you as a student, who is now at least working one job and doing probably many other things, it is time to really start finding that system if you haven't already. This is key to success just as a student yourself. So now that you're doing more things, it's important that you stay organized. We can help you with that. So talk to your mentors, talk to us if you need help with staying organized. This is just a little pro tip. I suggest talking to your professor about it from the beginning instead of waiting in case it does happen. Professors are humans and they get sick. Unfortunately, we don't want that to happen this semester, but if they get sick or they're going to a conference or they've got something going on one week and they're canceling classes, let them know up front. Anytime that happens, you would be willing to still host that class time and hold a session during that class time in that class space. So that is really, really nice for students to get that exposure because they're definitely have that time set aside, and you can run that session just like you would outside of the classroom. So talk to our coordinator about scheduling something like that. It does have to go in as an event. You have to take attendance, but those are really good options. In session, be friendly, as Oscar said, but also tap into the command strength that we all have within us. So it's really important that you do know that you are the leader of that space. We're practicing something called team leadership when we're hosting SI sessions. We can talk to you about that some more. But that means, yes, giving everybody roles, making sure they're responsible for something throughout session, including everyone, so being inclusive. But that definitely means that you are the one guiding that process, and that means you are in charge of the learning that's happening. So when people get off topic, it's very important to draw them back in. You can also plan ahead for if you have friend groups or friend pairs, kind of splitting them up, getting them used to working with other people so there's less disruption. Keeping people on track is key to making sure everybody gets what they need out of sessions. You do have the right to ask someone to leave a session if there is disruption or if there's a major conflict that is happening, something that is not getting modified. So remember that, again, we're all adults. And so this, we have our SI community agreement and those expectations for those students from day one. And it's very important that they're respectful of that space for everyone. So if someone is being disruptive, you can ask them to step outside. You can have a discussion with them, or if it doesn't work to get people back on topic, you can ask them to leave. Very rarely have we seen this happen, but we can also help you navigate it if it does come up, certainly. But in the moment, if something is happening and you can't get control of it, you can ask someone to leave and you'll discuss later with them if they have any questions. In team meetings, this is really important, as well as Oscar has already mentioned, and Sarah, working with your colleagues, to be that person taking notes, being prepared, coming with a positive attitude. So all of that starts internally, and then you take that out to the larger UNG community as an SI leader. So we're a team. We work together as a team, and we learn those skills and then take them out into the world with our students and the faculty that we work with. So it's really important that you show up on time, that you're respectful of everybody in that meeting, that you are interacting. That is a requirement. These are paid hours when we're together, and so definitely being interactive and engaging with the material. We've already talked about getting to know your team and how you can do that. But again, being present is key, so that you can really be in the moment. So we ask that you leave things outside, compartmentalize when you come into our team meetings, leave the outside world out there for when you can get back to it, but be present and be interactive when we're all together. And then As always, share feedback. We are an organization that considers feedback a function of respect for each other. It's very important. That's part of our leadership philosophy. And so we ask that you also give us feedback. I promise we can take it no matter what it might be, because that is how we improve. Most of the changes we've pretty much we've ever made in this program over the many years is all based on your feedback, and we can't make those changes unless you tell us. So please make sure that we know about that so we can better serve you. And kind of to sum it up, this is professionalism in SI. You work with many people. This is an opportunity. So we talk a lot, and we're going to be talking a lot about being brave, getting out of your comfort zone. We really value that. That's one of our values in SI, and helping build each other up. So we encourage you to see this all as an opportunity. The relationships you'll build could potentially change your life. I've seen that happen truly. We have those testimonies. And even I didn't mention with your faculty, you might have a professional relationship where you get a professional reference for the rest of your life. You'll have that also with your supervisors. As long as you build those relationships with those professionals, we can be there for you, and we will value that relationship. So welcome to this wonderful opportunity. We're excited to see you learn and grow with you. So let us know if you have any questions about anything said in this training or not said. If you have any questions about navigating any scenarios, please let us know, and we'll be happy to help.